Good morning. My name is Jeff Sklarz. I'm a partner at Green and Sklarz, and I have the honor of interviewing Eric Hylton, who is the commissioner, the IRS commissioner for SBSE, Small Business Self-Employed. And thank you very much, Eric. We have had several years of excellent involvement with the IRS executives and Department of Justice and other folks, and we really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you and see what the IRS at SBSE is working on. As Eric will tell us, SBSE probably serves has the farthest reach of any uh, aspect of the IRS. So
Mhm.
without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself, Eric, and tell us what it is you do with your days.
No, thanks, Jeff. I truly appreciate the opportunity to speak with many of the practitioners. I've heard a lot about this conference, and I think this is my first opportunity to speak. So I've been the SBSC commissioner now for about a year, and this is a interesting year, I would say. There's a lot going on. It's been 30 years this year for me with the service, and it's been a great career and spent most of my time within CI and 26 years, I should say, and left there as the deputy chief and really bridging that gap between our civil functions and CI even further. And so spent a lot of time over the last year doing that and setting up our new Office of Fraud Enforcement. And I'm quite sure. I think you're going to have Damon Rowe, who's our new director of fraud enforcement, and Carolyn Shank, who's the National Fraud Counsel, to present. But it's just been an exciting year, Jeff. I would have to say it's been truly exciting and really coming in this year, and having the commissioner appointed me to the position in September of last year, and having more of a laser focus on enforcement. And so we've come in and done, I think, a tremendous job in truly communicating out, many of our priorities and, activities that we've had, and really just bringing and bridging a lot of the experience I've had in international corruption, international tax evasion, terrorist financing, and all of that over to the civil side as well, and just kind of boosting up our fraud activities. But also having that balance as we think about small business and self-employed. We are here to help taxpayers understand their tax obligation, but also here to help them meet their tax obligation. So I always say those scales of justice that are there are so important. And as you stated, many taxpayers, when they engage us, they're engaging, SBSE, from an examination standpoint or collection standpoint. So it's a big task, but I think, with a 20,000 workforce, we're up to it, and continuously, as I say, we're hiring still. So I throw that out there as well. I mean, especially during these times of the pandemic and many individuals that are unemployed. I mean, the government is a great place to work. I've had a fabulous career. So, I mean, over the last year, it's been a lot of fun, a lot of stressful nights, but with the leadership team of the IRS, we've worked through it, and I think we've done a great job, as I will share with some of the details as well.
So obviously, it certainly has been an interesting year, as you said. Can you tell us a little bit about how the IRS and particularly SBSE have what's been going on during this COVID time? Obviously, a lot of your initiatives that you thought you'd be pursuing when you got appointed to this position changed a little bit in March. And then
Right.
CARES Act and many others, you were assigned a few other jobs to do along the way. Can you tell us how the IRS has been adapting to the situation we're in?
Yeah, I mean, here again, yes, the COVID activity has presented a lot of challenges, and first and foremost, we were thinking about the health and safety of taxpayers, health and safety, tax practitioners, and our number one asset is our employees, and really thinking about that. And so I give a lot of kudos to the commissioner for really jumping on board and being very intentional and thinking about how do we service taxpayers, and initially, and I kind of look at it in three phases in some regards. And so when we got hit with the crisis, everyone's thinking about, okay, what are we going to do, and what's going on, and how long will it last? And but we were, Commissioner came out with the People First initiative, and I mean, I think it was just a sweeping series of steps to really kind of help taxpayers in easing payment options, postponing some of compliance activities. So you had some of that, and really thinking about suspending some of the installment agreements we stopped on, as well as sending delinquent accounts to our private collection agency. We, as far as halted on liens and levies, that were issued by revenue officers. Some of this, suspending on some of the systemic liens and levies. So there was a lot of activity that we really put in play to kind of help out with this, because it's a pandemic. It's and you're thinking about how do you really, all right, we don't want to be knocking on your door and it's like, hey, what's going on? So so I think it was a challenging time, but we had that period between April 1st and July 15th. So that was really, I think, that first period of time. Then we started thinking about how do we resume operations, and as we after July 15th, we slowly started moving back into some of that, but reminding taxpayers to try to use, electronic options to support, kind of support social distancing, because, it's an obvious term. And I think many of us have probably said social distancing more this year than whenever. And it's funny when you think about it, you see some of the articles from the 1918s, and you see that term in there as well. But yeah, and then we also looked at how do we approved some temporary e-signatures for certain forms until 12/31 as well, which I think is still a strong push for all of us as well. And so from an examination standpoint, we started after July 15, started sending out more appointment letters, and then continuing audits virtually, which I think is important, because some taxpayers really want to kind of get through that process, but doing it in a very smart manner. And really, there's in the sense that there has to be more of an agreement if we need to come out and actually observe some books or observe the business. There has to be a mutual agreement between the taxpayers and the compliance employee, and even from a collection standpoint, some of the same thought process that we thinking about that as well. But
And I know in conferences past,
mhm.
um, your predecessor in your role, as well as other folks, have said one of the most important things, particularly in the collections aspect, is get out in the field. And obviously, that's had to change. What are some ways in which you've adapted the exam function and the collections function to this environment we're in?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Jeff. Trying to be smart about it. I mean, in engaging those taxpayers still. Also, we're using, whether it's communication. So I'll share one avenue in which we are still really engaging taxpayers from an examination standpoint, and using taxpayer digital communications, secure messaging, and really promoting that even more. And, for all the practitioners on here, use that taxpayer digital communications. We want to increase that adoption rate associated with that. And that gives us a great opportunity to start having secure messaging coming across with taxpayers and the practitioners and the taxpayers. That's a way that we're opting in to that. And a really exciting part of that, Jeff, I think I think as we move forward and as far as game changing, so taxpayers have to opt in for that taxpayer digital communication mechanism, but we put a QR code on the form for that. and then all taxpayers to take that smartphone and just scan that, and it puts them, land them right exactly where they need to be, for I mean, which is, I mean, phenomenal. You know, when
Yeah,
we
not
think
your
about.
father's IRS with QR code.
Yes. So, but you know, Jeff, it's great because not only did we use this QR code for the taxpayer digital communications, we're also using that QR code now on our from a collection standpoint, on our CP14s, which is your balance due notice. And think about this. Now, the taxpayers, they're out there and they have that QR code. I mean, they have that notice. And and we've done a lot with data analytics. You ask, okay, what are we doing? How do we engage? Doing a lot of behavioral insights, and trying to get a better feel, so that, and reducing what we call the cognitive load for, so that taxpayer, more plain language for taxpayers. And so we've done some of that, and then we take that CP14 and we put that QR code in. On that, you can go to the landing page in which you can set up even an installment agreement or a payment, and think about how that should reduce the demand from our collection call-in sites for that. I mean, you have to think about, what's going on the next generation. Like, if you ask my mother would say, I want to talk to someone. Now, if you ask my kids, I'll ask the question. I say, well, have you talked to your brother, your sister today? Oh, I text them. That's not the same thing as talking. So it's a different day. So we're trying to really adjust to that. And that QR code is going to be a phenomenal way for us. And so, but I want to add too, though, in this regards, we also are looking at just your egregious taxpayers. Still, we're highly pursuing the egregious taxpayers that are out there. And so that is still important. During this COVID time, it was interesting. It was interesting, Jeff, because we had several Jeopardy seizures and assessments during this time. So I don't know where taxpayers were trying to try something new during this time period, but a number of different Jeopardy assessments and seizures that came about during this. So we were still very aggressive and will still remain very aggressive as it relates to egregious taxpayers.
So let me ask you a little bit about the audit function, because obviously correspondence audits can still go forward.
Mhm.
How are you handling field audits?
Mhm. So what we're doing is, so we resume sending out our appointment letters, and then we're still doing most of those virtually. Many of the audits, and trying to get some books and records, and really thinking about how do we use digital taxpayer digital communications, and really trying to get some of that information in. And if there is an agreement between the taxpayer and the revenue agent in this case, we will still visit the site, or be able to go in and get some of the books and records, and work with that virtually. So there has to be more of an agreement, because we're really trying to think about the safety and the health of our employees as well as taxpayers. We've had situations in which taxpayers have actually come in, into our taxpayer assistance centers, and then we've been able to kind of work through that as well. So it's, a lot of it's case by case on situations, because different individuals have different feelings about whether social distancing is enough. But we're still pursuing that, and we're still moving forward with our exam plan, and I'll share some of our new areas of focus for us as well from an examination standpoint.
Before we turn to the areas of focus, you mentioned that the IRS is hiring, and under a couple of the bills passed recently, there's been more money freed up for hiring at the IRS. How, from a workflow standpoint, how are you training the new agents, number one, and then how are people back in the office? Are they working virtually? A mix of both? And then, I know I'm asking you a whole slew of
No,
questions.
no, no. Great
Last
questions.
would be, we heard about those tractor trailers full of mail. What's happening with that? So,
So, I mean, Jeff, I think that's a great, here again, I love your questions. I mean, I think all of them are so pertinent and really, so as we started the year, we start thinking about, our theme for SBSC is now is the time. And so as we're moving forward, as the pandemic kind of hit us a little bit, we thought about how do we transfer crisis equals opportunity in a sense. And as a side note, within the Chinese language, the two different characters for crisis is danger and opportunity. So and so we took that crisis and said, all right, a lot of companies are kind of approaching this with a deer in the headlights. No, we kept marching. From March until September, we still hired in SBSC over 3,000 employees, which is phenomenal. And we pivoted pretty quickly to do online onboarding, online virtual onboarding, as well as online training, and it is going fantastic. Obviously we want to have, in-person training, but we didn't allow it to stop us during this period of time to push forward with onboarding, virtual onboarding, as well as online training. So to try to help out with all the different areas that we were behind on. In addition to, I'm truly excited about the fact that before the pandemic, we were approximately 50%, portable employees. We're up to 91%. And think about a government agency going in a short period of time, going from 50 to 91% portal. I mean, so we really had to kind of, we were thinking about the taxpayers. In addition to, we inserted seasonal employees, into that so that we're able to hire and be able to meet the demands of the different calls. So it's a broader hiring strategy that we associated with that, because in some of our customer collection call-in sites, now we're able to have individuals, they could telework and have some individuals in the office. And so it's almost double duty. And so it's amazing because we this COVID has allowed us to amplify a lot of different things that we would like to have done in the past, and now that we're kind of pushing it all in the thought of for service for taxpayers.
No, that's really amazing. As you said, having in any agency,
Right.
our small law firm, let alone the agency at the government that's charged with protecting, people's most important personal data. That's pretty remarkable. So, in the time we have left, let's turn to some of the initiatives that have come up. You mentioned the creation of
Sure.
the fraud unit, and you alluded to some of the other things. So, Brittany, if you could put up the slide, the focus guide slide. This is pretty close to maybe the first release of the IRS focus guide for SBSE. I think it just came out last week or the week before. So
Yes,
hot
sir.
off the
Yes,
press.
sir.
Can you just walk us through what your initiatives are for the upcoming year, Eric?
Yeah, I appreciate, and I appreciate you pushing out this SBSC focus guide. We worked on it quite a bit. As I expressed earlier, last year was our theme was now is the time, and it's still the time, and for us to move forward. And we have various focus areas, so I want to just briefly touch on those, and then I'll jump into some of those priorities. But really thinking about strengthening our compliance activities, and taking enforcement actions whenever it's appropriate. That is so key for our employees to ensure that we will support them if we need to take enforcement actions whenever it's appropriate. Kind of maintaining a taxpayer focus as well. And I talked a little bit about some of the notice redesigns and different things of that nature so we can kind of have that service component. Another part that I am so excited about is, and I think it's going to be a cornerstone of my leadership while I'm here, as well as continuing forward, just ensuring awareness and collective understanding. And by doing sessions like this, and in addition to what us communicating and using media as a force multiplier for us. I want everyone in this country to know what SBSC is doing. And then so we have that renewed presence. It is not a surprise. We used that during, this last year, and we'll be doing some of that this year as well as it relates to our revenue officer compliance checks as well as our high income sweeps as well. So those activities are just so important for us to be able to communicate as much as possible. Then leveraging technology and data analytics. It is so important for us. That's another force multiplier so that we can concentrate on those really truly non-compliant individuals and marrying that up with what we have with our Office of Fraud Enforcement and thinking about how do we really think about and take and analyze all of the fraud referrals that we've had before and say, okay, what are the key factors that we have? Can we think about what does success really look like within there so that we can now think about and maybe not just we can peel off some of the cases if this particular case has the indicators and then get those over to CI sooner. So those are things that we're thinking about because, those characteristics are there and maybe even thinking about it even further. Not just that CI will accept the case, but can we even predict whether it can go on for prosecution? So that's really kind of thinking fast forward and saying, all right, how do we be smarter using data analytics? And I have to give kudos to our research office that we have in SBSC. They're doing a phenomenal job on a number of initiatives. So let me talk a little bit about priorities. So the first priority is high income non-filers, as well as just high income taxpayers as a whole. As we think about high income taxpayers, we're looking at taking a strong look on taxpayers that have a total positive income of over 10 million. And so we're really moving forward with that. And that's strongly within our exam plan, as well as looking at high income non-filers. High income non-filers we characterize as individuals who are making over $100,000 and they have not filed. And so we're aggressively pursuing that, and we have a heat map and using our data analytics to kind of spread that throughout the country. And I said, we will be in a city near you on that as well, because it is so important because you think about, say, wow, someone who makes over $100,000 and they have not filed. Why is that? And then, so as a part of that, in conjunction with our Office of Fraud Enforcement, we've instituted what we call Operation Surround Sound. So being able to take some of those high income non-filers and think about some other characteristics so that we can now refer those over to CI, which is so important because then we will be communicating, messaging that out. Then the other initiative I want to speak to is marijuana. Now, you have a number of states
And
that
marijuana may have been the biggest winner in the 2020
yes,
election. There were many states that have now passed ballot initiatives approving it. So, that the dichotomy between what seems to be the popular will and how it works within the banking system and
right,
is
right.
very fascinating. And you get to figure it out, Eric.
Yes, I mean, and that's the fascinating thing about this job, Jeff, because you have all these different issues. And then for me, what's also fascinating is I can bring both of my skill sets. So you have your tax skill set here, and then you have your money laundering skill set, because obviously with some of this is such a cash intensive business. And as a reminder to those marijuana businesses is the fact that, hey, someone comes in with over $10,000 in cash, just like any trader business, they need to file the Form 8300. Also, some of our taxpayer assistance centers will receive cash for that. I would direct them to the IRS.gov because they have to make an appointment associated with that. But one of the bigger issues associated with the marijuana business is obviously the fact that it is still a Schedule 1 controlled substance. And so from therefore, you have the 280E deductions, different things of that nature that's associated with, you don't get the full complement of that because it's an illegal substance. And so, so really, I encourage practitioners, if you're working with individuals within the marijuana industry, take full heed as to all of that is individuals need to think about for the marijuana business. But it is an area, it's a growing focus. I think 33 different states actually have it for have permits to sell medical marijuana, 12 of them for recreational purposes. And I was looking to see, I think it's like you mentioned, a number of other states, including passed laws this during this election season. And so we need to be there. We need to address it. And one of the things that I'm pushing forward is that we try to be on the cutting edge of some of these issues. And marijuana is definitely a cutting edge issue. Um, Thirdly, I would like to emphasize, virtual currency, cryptocurrency. And I have to first give kudos to my good friends over in CI. I know if some folks might have seen the article, the biggest seizure of
Yep.
cryptocurrency in the history of the Department of Justice. Yes, $1 billion, right? I mean, how amazing is that? And so I still love all of those great cases that I see from CI over there. And so that's, I mean, but we're partnering with CI, and CI has done a great job in being able to trace, using blockchain analysis and different things of that nature. But we're getting that software within the examination and the collection side as well. We are getting that so that we can be able to use that, whether it's for our automated reporting program, for our collection program, for our examination. So that software is going to be great for us to be able to really identify, because there's always a lot of questions as to what basis is, and you have, hard fork airdrops, different things, all those different natures, so there's a lot of complexity there. But virtual currency is an area that we are definitely going to pursue. Um, I talked to, obviously, microcaptive and syndicated easements are going to still be a part of our overall initiative as well. So those are just, some of the priorities that I think that we're emphasizing.
Certainly these are marijuana, crypto, certainly some of the sexier topics. Um, can you just provide an overview as to um, what you had mentioned data analytics. How are you refining your data analytics to this new day we're dealing with?
Another exciting topic. So, I mean, what we're really doing is building up that data analytics acumen within the service overall. Now, partnering, and I've been with the organization 30 years, and I say that there's never been a time where there's been so many joint collaboration across all business units as it relates to major issues, and one being data analytics. So we have this data and analytics strategic integration board in which we talk about key priorities and that we're looking at, and one of them being, last year we dealt a lot with employment tax, and what we have there with employment tax, and then we're looking at return preparers is another area that, and so really thinking about, okay, how do we use the data analytics? And truly the sweet spot, Jeff, there is marrying up, and we're hiring data scientists as well, and marrying up data scientists with our subject matter experts, and really doing that iterative process to whereas we can develop algorithms and models to whereas we can then decide, okay, this is where we need to look at from a non-compliance standpoint. It's a revolutionary thought of this test and learn process, and it's working. It is really working. And so from a data analytics perspective, we're excited about it. Working with our RAS office and with the other business operating divisions and CI, it's such a joint effort. And so a lot more to come as it relates to that.
So sort of the sabermetrics of tax. So we have about 30 seconds left. Why do, do you have any last comments before we close up the session?
No, first of all, just thank you very much for allowing me to share briefly about some of the initiatives we have. I will continue to push what we have on the Office of Fraud Enforcement. I think is going to be a game changer for the organization for years to come. I mean, as we inserting that into the conversation, it was at some point, you had a thought that it was just a slither of the pie. Now it's going to be a strong portion of the pie. So, so thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for all the hard work you do for our country. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Jeff.